Welcome to Reparenting Daily, your free daily guide for inner child healing and repairing the relationship with yourself. This podcast helps you establish a consistent reparenting routine and is divided into 3 sections. The first is a daily reading, the second is a discussion of that reading, followed by suggested journal prompts, and the last section is a peaceful binaural beats meditation for closing. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening from whenever and wherever you're joining us. I'm so glad that you can join us for this journey of self-expansion. If this is your first time, welcome. As a celebration of completing our first full year of Reparenting Daily episodes, I've opened a free membership tier for the Patreon community so that you can access more resources and join weekly Zoom calls for free. I understand there's a lot going on in the world right now, and I know that many people are really struggling. My hope with this is to encourage others to still pick up the work of reparenting and offer a free community where people can come together and do that. I'd also like to thank all of you who've been along on the journey so far. Just as a reminder, this is a free podcast, but you can support the project by purchasing the Reparenting Daily journal, where you can follow us along all year. This 333-page journal gives you extra insight and resources for each week, and it also provides space for you to keep your notes. Another way to support the podcast is to purchase the Fairy Tales for Reparenting series, volumes 1 through 3. This collection organizes famous and obscure fairy tales from around the world into 3 phases of the hero's journey, beginning, middle, and end. And while you might think that fairy tales are for kids, I'd like to challenge you here. These stories contain profound truths and lessons carried down over millennia that we can use to integrate in our reparenting journey. It's a fun way to connect with your inner child. Each volume contains 10 fairy tales. They include an analysis section to help you dive deeper into the message, as well as journal prompts to reflect on the story's meaning for your own life. Lastly, you can also support the podcast by taking a paid Patreon subscription, purchasing the books on the website, or by donating to Buy Me a Coffee. You can find all this information on the supporter section of the website. And so, with these announcements out of the way, let's dive into today's practice. Today's reading is an article from Psychology Today entitled Self-Trust and How to Build It. Just as a reminder, we're now in March, and the theme for this month is Building Self-Trust and Confidence. We're in week 1, and the theme for this week is Understanding the Foundations of Self-Trust. Self-Trust and How to Build It. Stand up to the inner critic. Self-trust is not trusting to know all the answers, nor is it believing that you will always do the right things. It's having the conviction that you will be kind and respectful to yourself regardless of the outcome of your efforts. The definition of self-trust is the firm reliance on the integrity for yourself. There's a difference between a life that is grounded in self-trust and one that is not. When we look at examples of people who are self-trusting, we find that they have clarity and confidence in their choices. They are independent, which includes healthy dependency, not overly dependent or hyper-independent. They speak with authority that comes from a deep place within, but is also not arrogant. They are good observers and have cultivated the ability to learn from their experiences, both the successes as well as the failures. Because they can trust themselves to not be punitive when they make mistakes, they can look openly at their experience without fear or self-punishment. If my agenda is to protect myself from external or internal recrimination, I'm not going to be able to examine my experiences because my primary intention is not to learn, but to protect myself. Regret undermines self-trust. The word recrimination has the word crime within it. Many people live with a lot of regret. Some people have the misguided notion that you should not have regrets. That belief causes them to have more regrets. It's human to have regrets. Only a psychopath or a person who is incapable of learning anything new will have no regrets. Regret itself is not the problem. What keeps us stuck in regret is the resistance to feeling the full depth of it. It's overwhelming when we don't have the inner resources to hold the magnitude of the remorse. There are plenty of means to learn from regrets and to forgive ourselves. The bigger the regret, the deeper the shame, and the bigger the opportunity. Just like being compassionate and forgiving for another person who may have harmed us, we can focus that same attitude towards ourselves. When we demonstrate that we have learned from the mistake, regret evaporates. Then self-forgiveness and self-trust automatically occur. We are producing evidence that reflects the integration of what we've learned. Avoiding the inner critic undermines self-trust. People who have not learned how to relate to their inner critical voice in a productive way will argue with it or comply with its indictments. When we buy into the negative voice, we diminish our self-trust. Trying to escape the inner critic and ignoring it by drinking or drugging or other distractions will only empower it. The way to build self-trust is to relate to the inner critic and show it that it is taking a seed of truth and blowing it totally out of proportion. There are ways to get to know the critic by being curious about its nature. What is the inner critic? Where does it come from? What is its intention? What does it want from us? What is its agenda? What is its job? Is it educable, able to be educated? Is there any way other than adversarial to relate to it? And how do we stand up to the inner critic? When we listen to the critic, relate to it, and educate it, we stand up to it. A positive shift in our relationships with the inner critic is indeed possible. Being caught in the past or worrying about the future undermines self-trust. There are so many opportunities all around us that are missed. If we live in a conscience of regret, we live in the past. If we are fearful of the possibility of future suffering, we are living in the future. While bouncing back and forth between the past and the future, we are missing the present moment. If we're not present, we can't learn and keep recycling through the same mistakes. As soon as we stop focusing on the future, we will feel anxious and vulnerable. Worry is an expression of an imagined defense to keep trouble away. When we are present, we may feel unprotected. The challenge is to cultivate a courageous heart that can tolerate increasingly longer periods of presence. By cultivating tolerance for being in anxiety for longer periods of time, we are not enslaved by fear, and self-trust automatically grows stronger. When we are in the present moment, it is the ultimate protection. The paradox is that it seems like dropping the protection that worry provides is dangerous and puts us at risk. But the vulnerability of pure presence is the ultimate sanctuary. When we are fully present, there is no fear. Often the fearful mind kicks in saying, while you are not paying attention to all those things that you should be concerned about, all kinds of dangers are looming. All kinds of problems need to be solved. All kinds of people are waiting for you to take care of them. Stop indulging yourself in this childish experiment and get on with life. If people see that you are not doing what you should be doing and planning for the future, they will have no use of you. The weight of regret and lack of presence can crack us open in a way that we can no longer maintain our previous self-image and worldview. Learning to manage the inner critic will free up energy that is necessary to develop self-trust. Learning to stay present and coming into the right relationship with the inner critic work together to become a breakthrough for our salvation. These factors in combination are the beginning of an orientation towards a life where we welcome new insights. Now, no longer so fearful of being open and present in our lives, the anxiety that robs us of self-trust has been transformed to eager anticipation of future learning. And self-trust will now be our constant companion. Thank you, and that's the reading for today. Hey guys, welcome back. Now, this was a really great article I found on self-trust and really allowing us to start off at the baseline level before we progress further with this month's theme of confidence and self-trust. Self-trust is really that grounding core, the bedrock of confidence. And so it's important that we gain a increasing level of clarity on what self-trust actually is. Because when you've grown up without guidance, support, or nurturing, or at least sufficient amounts, you might be a bit unsure how to be, how to act, how to think. You were never reflected or supported or nurtured in developing your own perspective and view. That's a critical developmental milestone that might have been missed. And so, as you've noticed in the article, they said that at one point that self-trust, when we look at examples of people who are self-trusting, we find that they have clarity and confidence in their choices. And now if you've grown up in a dysfunctional family where gaslighting, emotional abuse, ignoring, or deflecting, denial, or the primary modes of emotional management, then you might not even understand what self-trust really is. And that's where I wanted to get to. Before we can begin to gain self-trust, we have to be able to come back to ourselves. Sorry, the laundry is done, so it's going to close that door. So let's keep going. The most important thing is that we have to learn to gain clarity in our worldview and our self-image. Because also, something we know, growing up in this kind of dysfunctional family, you will tend to start internalizing a lot of the bullshit and crap that other people are putting on you because you perhaps weren't taught about boundaries. But there's always space to learn and improve. As I've mentioned before, reparenting and healing childhood trauma is not as difficult as most people make it out to be. I'm not saying that it's easy as a walk in the park, it's nothing, but this endless search that so many people are stuck on, never coming to a place of, not completion, because I don't think that this is a finite process. It's also integrated into your own natural growth of the human being, which is something that does not ever stop. And so when you have trauma, it's like you're still going through that continuous and never-ending human development, but you have some things to look at and to adjust in your strategy on how you decide to live your life. But self-trust and confidence and clarity are some of the most important ways that we can begin respecting ourselves and then behaving and living in a way that is respectful of others. And that alone is going to lead to the connections, the support, the care, the nurturing that we were missing growing up. It's all about those corrective experiences. And so as you reflect on this article today and perhaps read it a second time, really give yourself some space to compare what did you previously view as a definition of self-trust, and now reading this article, what do you actually view as your definition of self-trust? That's how you can begin to make incremental changes over this month. And by the end of the month, we will be more grounded in our self-trust, clarity, and confidence. It almost takes a certain amount of aggression. Maybe not aggression, but maybe assertiveness is the better word. It might be more friendly for other people, but in some ways it is aggression in defining your truth. Clarity, for many of us, is something that we're expecting to come outside. You know, if your parents were traumatizing to you and they never repaired, then you might feel so unsettled, like, I need them to reply, I need them to respond, I need them to say something in a certain way, I need them to explain why they did something, you know, to prove to me that, you know, my self-worth is not low because of what they did. But most people who are operating at that level where they're consciously or unconsciously harming others, they're not going to have that level of self-reflection to be able to meet you there. And to rely on them for your clarity is to surrender all of your power. And we know that on this physical plane, as Carolyn Myss says, power is the name of the game. Something that adult children or people who are in the process of reparenting struggle with is the concept of power, because it has been abused against us for the majority of our lives, starting with those earliest relationships. But you will never heal if you refuse the conversation on power, on your right to determine your reality and thus secure your clarity. That is one aspect of your power that you must investigate in order to establish self-trust and confidence. And it's something that's so perfectly within your reach. What's more, it's free. You don't need a therapist to do it. You don't need this podcast. You need a piece of paper, a pencil or pen, and your brain. Simple. Write out your structured arguments of the repetitive thoughts, the inner critic, the things that really block you and keep you suppressed and limited, the ways that you show up small. What are those messages? Write down those negatives, and then next to each of those negatives, like make a chart where you have 2 columns, and then for each negative, you want to write a positive reframing. Now, how you decide to do that can be, many different ways to arrive at that. But it's something that you have to find what works with you to reduce the negative impact of something that was on the negative column. So, for example, if you grew up and your parents didn't want to talk to you, or they basically just raise you as a latchkey kid. You come home, you cook your own food, you do your clothes. They're basically just making sure you don't die or something. Or maybe they didn't even do that. I mean, if you're listening to this, obviously you're still here with us, so they did manage to do that part sufficiently. But for all of the other skills that you failed to develop, and missed a chance to learn and be taught and nurtured and guided through, it becomes increasingly important that you are able to come to yourself to determine your reality. And that requires, again, as I said, a discussion on power, which we will be exploring in this monthly theme of March for self-trust and confidence. It's time to really bring that discussion of power into the forefront, because so many people are really struggling with it, and so many people are so turned off that their trauma has caused them to deny their own power. And because their trauma has caused them to deny their own power, they move in the world in a way that causes them to be targeted by others who are seeking to extract or exploit energy or power from others. And so it's really a non-negotiable. And it's something I've realized in the ACA program, that many people are quite uncomfortable with that topic. But it's not something that we can ignore if we want to build a life worth living. And as I said before, the best part is it's free. No, don't have to pay for anything for this. You can literally do it on your own, anywhere you want. So as we go into the journal prompts for today, number 1, what was my definition or understanding of self-trust before reading this article? And how has it changed? Number 2, how do you measure and gauge your levels of self-trust in your life? Do you think that this is a reliable measurement? Or do you think that there's room for improvement? If so, what improvements need to be made? And number 3, what are the biggest repetitive inner critic messages that are blocking your self-trust, confidence, joy, vitality, and energy? What are those most repetitive and perhaps ingrained in negative inner critic beliefs, so that we can begin to address them one by one? That's it for today. As always, thanks for being here. Take care of yourself, and please do be well. This was the first time that I read a discussion off the cuff, as opposed to using some support with AI. So we're going to see how this goes, because I really would like to start making some more distance from AI. I've been using it to help me kind of supplement the work that I'm doing, in the sense of, I don't have many other people who are helping me with this project. I have some volunteers who come every now and then, but it's a lot of work to do, and quite a high volume of work to do. And so I have been relying on some of these AI tools, and now I just had some problem with ChatGPT. I think that the system is crashing, and I really want to distance myself away from it so I can cut the subscription, because it's not really that useful anymore. The quality is getting worse and worse. So I think it's going to be much better if I just have these open discussions. So if you're actually still listening, and you have any feedback or thoughts about reading the reflection from an AI versus me speaking off the cuff, let me know. I mean, we're already almost 2 years into reparenting episodes. I think I looked it up the other day, 740 episodes. So we're now at 667. So almost 2 years in, I think I can start to wing it. I have enough confidence and clarity to be able to speak on these topics. Perhaps I need to just practice more speaking off the cuff after reading the article. But yeah, let's see what happens, guys. So in any case, thanks for being here. Again, take care of yourself, and please do be well. welcome back. Now, this is the third and final section of the daily podcast. This is your silent meditation. Please find a place where you can be comfortable and undisturbed, where you can relax and spend some time with yourself for this 10-minute silent meditation. You can choose to be sitting, standing, lying down, or in whatever position makes you comfortable today. Just take some time to listen to yourself. Next, be sure that you are taking some time to be with your breath to connect with your body. Don't be disturbed or overwhelmed by your thoughts. Simply allow them to pass. Just observe them. Do not engage with your thoughts. Only be mindful of them passing as if they are drifting down a river. Use this time to connect with yourself. Whatever time of day you are listening to this, Namaste.